What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Jets Radio, the fan series. This series is all about talking the history of New York Jets with longtime fans. If you want to be on this, it's very easy. Just message us, at Talk Jets Radio on Instagram and Twitter, or you can message me, Tyson Roush, TRoush21, and we'll get you on. And we want to thank everybody that's been listening and reaching out. We've had a blast with this, something new, and we'll see what happens. So we're going to bring on Michael Wilkerson. Michael, what's up, man?
Hey, Tyson, how you doing, man? All good. Enjoying the day off.
Nice, man. I wish I was off today. So let's start out, man. Where do you live, and what made you a Jets fan?
So I'm in San Antonio right now, but I'm originally from Puerto Rico. I've been in the States about 12 years or so now. I'm about 30. And nothing. My grandpa watched a lot of football when I was young growing up. He was a huge Cowboys fan. And I was about 4 or 5 years old. Favorite color was green. And saw the Jets on TV, and it kind of stuck from there. Then been a Jets fan ever since.
Yeah, lucky you, right? So what are some of your favorite memories of this team?
I loved Bill Parcells. Growing up, that was one of my first years where I could really, really kind of remember what was going on. I was like 8 years old, 9 years old. And watching that team, kind of that 98 team, then like the early 2000s, I loved Chad Pennington, and, I still fight for him as the most accurate, quarterback of all time, even though he didn't have an arm. But yeah, those teams were a lot of fun. And then I guess, the 2009, 2010 team, I actually went to school in upstate New York. And one of my roommates is a huge Jets fan too, so we used to drive down to games at least a couple, 3 or 4 times a year. So that was a blast too.
So what were your thoughts on Mark Sanchez as the Jets quarterback?
Yeah, so I definitely have a rich history with him, at least, personally. I was at his home opener against the Patriots when we beat Brady, and the last year in Giant Stadium. And I was actually at the Buff Fumble game too. That game was a lot of fun too. That's always going to stick there. And a bunch of other of his games. I thought he was going to be a lot better than obviously what he turned out to be. I really loved it when we jumped up, and traded up for the pick, and I really bought into the hype for him. But just accuracy issues just never were fixed, I guess. And I didn't really love Schottenheimer at the time too, with what he was doing with him. So I kind of always blame the Jets too. I think we have a history of being able to mess things up when we have them almost good, or decently well. So yeah, I enjoyed Sanchez, but I definitely thought it was going to be a lot better.
So as a Jets fan, who are some of your favorite players all time, like as of now?
Yeah. So like I said, Chad Pennington is one of my big ones, but my favorite top player is probably Curtis Martin, for sure. Just watching him tear it up, and then even at his age when he was doing it, leading the league in rushing as one of the oldest players. That was a lot of fun to watch. And I played Pee Wee when I was younger, and got to play running back a little bit too. So I was kind of always trying to be just like him, or at least in my mind I was.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with that, man. A Hall of Famer or an ambassador on and off the field. Curtis did it all. So if somebody asks you, what is life as a Jets fan, how would you answer that?
I tell people it keeps me humble. But it's
true.
You gotta, when you meet another Jets fan that they're a true fan to a certain extent, because it's one thing that you gotta love the team if you're gonna root for them. It's one of those things you might not always buy into what they're doing, or you love to hate them or a situation like that, but there's a certain loyalty there that the Jets fans have, and a certain passion that it's good to be a part of, and it's fun to be a part of.
No, as somebody that lives, out of state, I'm in New Jersey, obviously. As somebody lives out in San Antonio, how do you describe the media coverage, man? Because it seems to like I think many times the media is always very negative towards the Jets. They wait for the other shoe to fall. They just wait for any sense of something. Like a guy could play for 5 different teams and does something wrong, like, oh, former Jet. Like, it's like, wait a minute, you played for 5 other teams. Like, why is it always – but do you ever feel like that? Do you think it's kind of skewed and kind of negative, or do you see something differently?
Yeah, I definitely agree 100%. Like, I think the media, talking anywhere, like the mainstream media, to say the least, definitely hates on the Jets. It's very rare to get any kind of praise, even, at all. But you get to I listen to a lot of podcasts, and try to kind of keep up with that. And it's always a lot of actual Jets fans talking, and they can be real and honest. Some you don't always agree with or really believe to a certain extent, but it's cool to listen to that sense of media because I feel that's a little bit more connected with me and my thoughts versus the people out there in the mainstream. It's just any opportunity we can, Tebow, anything like that. Like it's just any opportunity to make fun of us is why not.
Yeah, of course. And so now, being out there in Texas, do you go to sports bars to watch games, or you get like NFL ticket, or how do you watch Jets games?
NFL ticket. I also work at a restaurant that has I work in restaurants and stuff. So in that opportunity, when I work Sundays, we have Sunday tickets there too. So I'm watching games through there. But definitely Sunday ticket. There's not a lot of Jets bars in San Antonio, if any. Which is sad because there's actually a Buffalo Bills bar down here, so it's weird that they have that, but I can't find a Jet bar yet, so I'm still searching.
Yeah, there's a bunch of fan clubs in Texas. I know we went down there for the Jets Cowboys game. There's a bunch of fan clubs down there, so maybe you can catch up with one of them because I don't know how far away they are from you, but there's definitely 4 or 5 that we've talked to over the years. A hot topic for us always is the head coach, Adam Gase, especially going into this year where, with no mini camps, no OTAs, it seems like there's going to be a premium on coaching because, you're going to have very limited time to get this team up to speed. What is your take on Adam Gase so far? Do you, as being a head coach?
Well, I think popular belief is easy to say that he's definitely not liked. I don't love him just based off the 1 year that I've seen. Obviously coming in from Miami, I didn't really enjoy him either. It was nice to have a Peyton Manning backing, and I still keep that in the back of my mind because you definitely have to, listen to him to a certain extent, right? Because he 100% we can say knows what he was talking about, at least being on the field and working with someone that closely on the field. But just the not willingness, the not willing to adjust, in a game. Is what really frustrated me more with watching him. I don't want someone to hinder Sam's development and someone that isn't really to kind of see what the defense is throwing at them and kind of adjust and run in the same style over and over, even with Le'Veon Bell throughout the season. It feels like he had one good game where we did something that we could have potential, like lining him out in the slot against Oakland or something like that, catches one amazing pass, and then we decide never to do it again. So I don't like that aspect of it. Now, you can't argue the 6-2, and that, not having training camp and along those lines with this season going on, that there is a positive spin to it, that if the players did buy into them, and then that we did finish that 6-2, that there could be a nice little run on to the beginning of the season. But overall, I expected more from the X's and O's. But it is kind of nice to see that the team did buy into it a little bit versus, the overall hype is, everybody hates him and he's terrible.
So in terms of, Sam Darnold, who I think has, franchise quarterback capabilities, how much faith do you have in Adam Gase to maximize Sam Darnold? That's where I don't have a lot of faith in it right now, just based off what we saw last season. Now, Sam Darnold had a winning record. We had a winning record when Sam Darnold was in, and I understand that. And like I said, he did get better, but I didn't really see the jump I wanted to, and I think everybody else wanted to. And we can blame the mono and understand that he wasn't himself. And that's an easy excuse to buy in. And I can understand that, but I definitely still wanted to see more. And I'm really holding a lot on year 3. I agree with you in every sentiment. I believe Sam Darnold has the capabilities, has the leadership qualities, has shown it on and off the field. If he just gets the right person to develop him, I think he'll be there now. I think Adam Gase maybe has a situation where he might work with a quarterback that's better off, like Peyton Manning, that understands the game and can be on his level. But, in terms of developing somebody, I don't know if he can get, Sam from A to B at that point. But if Sam Darnold's at B already, maybe it'd be a better relationship. But again, that's all hypothetical to a certain extent. Yeah, I think, Adam Gase did a very good job of making a lot of excuses last year to justify the worst offense in the NFL. But this offseason, Joe Douglas did his best to try to get rid of some of those excuses. And the first one was the offensive line, where they completely overhauled it, where you could have 3 or 4 new starters, which is a lot in the NFL. What are your thoughts on how Joe Douglas, upgraded the offensive line, and do you think it'll be enough to make them, average or maybe above average?
I think definitely we can hit the average point. I don't want to start saying above average yet. We're still Brian Winters is kind of a question mark. The right side of the line, if we believe in Chemi, or if we're gonna have even Becton start over there, or I'm not sure. I know everyone has the idea of Becton starting on the left side, and it makes sense. It should be his position for the future. But let's see how he fits into the NFL without a training camp to start off. At least that's how I think of it. And in terms of the offensive line, I think Joe Douglas is doing great, but I want more. It's kind of like that. I'm looking forward to even next year's draft, where I hope we even double up on some more offensive linemen. I think Cameron Clark was it, the 4th round pick. I think he was a solid pick and could be a guard in the future for us, which I really enjoy. But I'd be willing to sign even Jason Peters to give Makai some maybe veteran kind of leadership, someone that's been through it all and done it all to a certain extent in this league and still has maybe a year to give. So I think we're not done yet. I still believe Joe has some moves that he's gonna do, and I would like it to see done kind of in the offensive line now. It was our weakest point, or one of our weakest points because we had so many last year, and to know that he really addressed it. I feel the same way kind of about the corner position. So it's to go from the weakest link to at least sustainable, where you can actually defend yourself on the field. I think it says a lot in one off season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not necessarily sure how good the starting group is going to be, but I think the overall depth base is better. Where last year the drop off was significant. I think this year the overall talent base is better, the depth is better. Whether the starters are going to be an average group or above average group, I'm not sure. I think again, I still worry about the coaching, where you starters, no OTAs, no mini camps. Now it's like go right in the training camp, and the same offensive line coaches last year, which kind of is weird to me. So, if you say they're average there, which is good, better than last year, what are your thoughts on the wide receiver position then?
I'm someone that believed that 4th round pick that we took, Jason Morgan, what's his name?
James Morgan, yeah.
James Morgan. That should have been a receiver. Tyler Johnson out of Michigan. Out of Minnesota. I know it would have been a great pick in that situation. At least someone that has a lot of hype coming out of college. We'll see what it does in the NFL. But I definitely wanted it to be addressed at least with one more pick, considering the hype of the draft class. But I also believe if we assure everything else, man, the receivers in itself are someone that kind of falls into place. I know they have to get open, and they have to. Sam's got to be able to throw to an open receiver. But I really love the 2nd round pick. Trading back to it, had us all on the edge of our seats, and it really worked out. Definitely a win for Joe. And I'd love to see what he can do. I think Perryman is gonna be very similar to what Robbie was giving us, especially if he finishes the year off. Now he's not going to be. I don't think he's as talented as Robbie, but being a little bit heavier and bigger, I think he can be a little bit more physical than him. And in the last 5 weeks of the season last year in Tampa, we saw that physicality come through when he was able to make a bunch of contested catches in that situation. So, I don't think we need 100% all-star receivers to win. I think if we shore up the offensive line, play great defense, and able to get a line behind Le'Veon even, that we have solid slot guys like Jameson, and some deep routes on the outside, I think we're okay. Some flyers on the outside. So I really, even that's why you even say next year. I know people even talk about next year picking up a wide receiver in the first couple rounds. Like, I just want to build up the offensive line and maybe an edge rusher, and I think our team would be pretty well on its way.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, where it's like, Joe Douglas had so many holes to fill, and he tried to do his best he can, but I don't think it's enough. Like, I think everybody right now is excited about football and like, oh, everything is great, and this guy's going to be great, and everybody's great. But if we're realistic about it, like, these are some journeyman guys, and Sam still doesn't have his number one guy, a number one go-to receiver. It could be Chris Herndon if he stays healthy. And it just seems like I'm with you. I wish they took 2 receivers in the draft. The quarterback pick drove me insane. And now you kind of hope that there's some kind of, training camp cut that you can kind of get, like a proven guy, some kind of player that you could bring in. and that applies to the offensive line too. If you can find another guy like Larry Warford's out there, but it seems like he's not a fit based on his style of play, which whatever. But I'm kind of in the same boat, and it's almost like this is like a stopgap year, and next year's the year they go for it. Mm-hmm. Where I almost have this feeling that this is like a built-in excuse here again for Adam Gase, where he's like, listen, I really don't have the guys I want. This is kind of a transition year, but next year's going to be the year where we have all the pieces we want moving forward. And then you mentioned it, even with Le'Veon Bell. Like, what do you expect from him and the running game this year? Because they could, in theory, run behind Becton and work that and maybe have something more than last year.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. I really believe Le'Veon. I mean, people will hate, obviously, on the numbers and what they saw, but if you really watched every Jets game, he was dodging people behind the line of scrimmage and then making a 2 or 3 yard run. If he would get almost every time his yards before contact were under a yard. So it was a situation where I really never saw any holes. I won't forget like one of the first games, I think it was last season, or maybe it was a night game, but it was like a 4th and 2, and or 4th and 1, and we went for it and ran the ball with Le'Veon, and he dodged 2 guys in the backfield and hit somebody, spun around, and then made the first down. So if that's what he's doing all season, we can't expect him to do anything. So I believe in running. All of our favorite teams, at least my favorite teams in the past, have been a solid, heavy running game with a heavy defense. And I think that's what we should, try to do is why try to put everything on Darnold so early? Let him develop, let time, let him have a solid offensive line, and let guys try to stack the box. And that's when he can kind of let his arm loose. And I agree 100%. I think this year for Joe is a stopgap year. I don't really think he's putting into anything this year. I mean, the flexibility that he's setting up for next year is incredible. And the fact that we were able to even stay competitive in terms of a roster and retain guys on all these deals, that, who would have thought we would have brought Jordan Jenkins for $5 million back? I thought everyone was signing him at, 4-year deal, at least $8 to $7 or $9 million a year. So I think he did real well. But I kind of disagree with the forgiveness of Gase. What I'm hoping is that this is a stopgap year for him, and that he uses it as us if we don't have a great year, to move on from Adam Gase, and then have all the cap space and the opportunity to bring on his own head coach. Because technically, even though they are friends or they say they have a relationship, it's not his hire. So.
No, listen. If you know me, man, I'm not a Gase supporter by no means. I hated the hire when it happened. I didn't like a lot of things that happened last year, but I kind of see the way the Jets are handling things, and you could just see it. I just get this funny feeling if they find a way to win 5 or 6 games, and the offense is a little bit better and Sam plays better, I think they're like, all right, this was a step in the right direction, and they come back next year. I wish we had higher expectations. I just had this funny feeling that's how it's going to play out. But you mentioned a couple of things there too on defense, where it's like I was completely wrong about the contracts for Poole and Jordan. I mean, I thought they were going to get much more money than they did. They made some upgrades at the corner position with Pierre Desir. You got Bryce Hall in the draft. They got a bunch of what are your thoughts on this defense? Do you think it'll be better than last year, or it could be better than last year and not have the same results because they're playing much better offenses?
Yeah, so that's kind of what you have to look at, right? That's, again, the talk that it is, that last year our defense played against some pretty crappy offenses, and that's a result of the numbers. But, I mean, last year our defense also was just as injury plagued as our offense was. I mean, corner position, inside linebacker, I mean, the leaders on our team, like Avery Williamson, he might not be a vocal leader, but he's definitely a quiet one, and he was the year before Mosley got there. And then, Mosley in itself going down, I mean, it was a situation where our defense stood task. I never really, I was kind of proud of it because, unfortunately as a Jets fan, you don't really believe that, they have that next man up mentality, the system where if one guy goes down, the next one's going to come up, the next one's going to come up. And, yes, we were exploited because of our 3rd and 4th and 5th string guys in at certain positions, but our defense was solid, and I think we did a really good job last year. I think we only got better. You mentioned the trades for the corners, the signings, the camaraderie. We're really bringing back the same group that we had last year and then just adding a couple pieces to it. The veteran leadership on the team, everywhere from the defensive line all the way, throughout the linebacking core and the back and the secondary. So I think it should be a really solid defense. I'm really excited. Now I know our schedule's one of the hardest schedules in the NFL. But to be honest, I expect us to have a top 10 defense again next year. If we can just find a way to get some more pass rush, I think we really could be even better.
Yeah, no, I mean, the return of C.J. Mosley, if he can stay healthy all year, is an enormous, impact to defense. But the interesting thing for me is going to be Quinnen Williams, where a lot of expectations last year. He didn't really play all that well. He was actually outplayed by Nathan Shepard and McClendon and Fotokoski and everybody else. But apparently he's taking this offseason pretty, he's going after it with a great diet and new training regimen and everything else. I mean, if we're honest, like last year, yeah. And it's like he had no more Oreos, which I could do that. But it seems like, last year he had a chance where there was 3 or 4 times where he can get a sack and something stupid would happen where he would, swipe at the head and miss him, or he'd trip and fall, or some other stuff happen. What are your expectations for Quinnen this year? Can he be that pass rusher to disrupt the middle and actually create something for us?
Yeah, no, I can't really agree more. Like, I feel like every time he was about to either, get his hand on somebody, like he would just randomly get touched, like pushed off, by a clipping defender, or clipping offensive lineman or something like that, or a dragging fullback or something coming across, just barely getting in his way, that I feel like if he's a little more ready to go for the NFL, he'll just have those guys bounce off him and not even affect them. I really hope he doesn't become another one of our defensive linemen. My last name's Wilkerson, so I was obviously a huge, really excited about the Wilkerson pick. I again have an authentic, game worn jersey, a Wilkerson jersey, and then that turned extremely south real quick. And then, Leonard Williams unfortunately never panned out, so it's kind of the history of that recently, and I just hope it doesn't become that. I think the kid has potential, and the kid, if the talk is there and the hype is there, he should be great. And I think he kind of didn't think it was going to be that tough as it was last year. And I think he expected to dominate, and then did it. I hope the chip grew a little bit larger. So I am expecting a bigger year for him. Now, I don't see Aaron Donald yet, which is a lot of us hope and wish and hope for, but I still think he's got some years to develop into that and really, speed up his game. In terms of being able to understand and read defenses and know how they're going to play him and what they're going to do. So I expect a better year than last year. I've heard definitely a step up. Second year in the league for defensive linemen is usually a little bit better than the first. But it's definitely not a situation where I see him being the Aaron Donald defensive lineman yet, let's say.
Yeah, no, I agree. And then if you're looking at pass rush, I mean, Jordan Jenkins gets better every year. They have Frankie Louvu, you have the guy they drafted, Zuniga. But it's like, to me, I've been begging for Marcus Golden for probably about 4 months now, or 3 months, where I just wish they'd find some situational guy on the outside to become a distraction. Some guy you got to account for, like the opposing offensive coordinator's got to account for him or something like that. Would you look at a guy like Golden, or would you consider Jadeveon Clowney, or what would you do to maybe get a guy signed in training camp?
No, I mean, Golden's the guy. I agree. He's the guy I want. I mean, I think price point, he could be signed for less than Jenkins was signed, to be honest. Maybe up to $7 or $8 million, but at this point, we have the cap space, and I think that's kind of where Joe's doing. I expect to see either the cornerback signing or the edge rusher, and another offensive lineman. I expect 2 more signings. But I 100% think that's the one position if we can attack. And, Greg Williams can use people in such great situations that I'm expecting a lot from the rookie, from Zuniga, just like you said. I think his athleticism, to a certain extent, something can be really useful for us in terms of that pass rushing ability. I definitely don't see him as kind of that banger run stopper, but definitely on those key third downs, pass rushing situations. I could definitely see it him being influenced and Greg Williams using him effectively. So I really believe in his defense, and I think he knows how to get the best out of players and make them want to play for him too. So I would love the signing. I would love the signing. I don't love Clowney. I know he's the big name. And if we get him for a 1 year, $12 million contract, and he can shore up an area. He does. He is a presence. He is somebody that people 100% have to account for. They can't just definitely not ignore him, but I think he's not worth the hype.
So, and speaking of pass rushers, you can make a case that last year Jamal Adams was the Jets' best pass rusher.
Best one.
What is your take on this contract saga, which is no doubt going to get ugly, man? It's already starting. I mean, he's kind of, if he penalized like crazy, so he can go to camp and then say, hey, you know what, I have a nagging injury, I can't practice. But how do you think this is all going to play out?
So I want to believe in him a little bit more in terms of that aspect. I know stuff can get real ugly real quick, especially when talking about people's money. But I see this is another opportunity for Joe to show us who he is. And Joe did it. We didn't know who he was for his first draft, and then I think we, more than not, we'll see it throughout the years, right? We can't tell speculation now, but I think he did well. He performed well. I think he controlled the draft versus the draft controlling him. So I want this to be shown along the same lines. Now, our history obviously is not signing our own. We don't like to do it for some reason. I loved John Abraham, something like that, and I wanted us to give him a lot more.
You signed your boy Mo.
We did. Yeah, that's what we do. That's exactly what we do. That is the perfect Jet thing to do. But it's along those lines. I think I don't think he's going to hold out this year. I don't expect Joe to get him a new contract at all. I expect him to come play after this one, and something worked out next year. People like Mahomes hasn't even gotten talked about a new contract next year, and he's quiet. So I think Jamal is just a loud person, and that's who he is. And you can't love him, because of who he is when he's doing well for you, and hate him because of who he is when you don't agree 100% about what he's voicing, his opinions or things like that. So, I don't love the contract saga, obviously, but it's one of the situations that everyone is right, has their right to be who they are. And I just hope that it doesn't come into the season, and knowing who he has been and what he is about in terms of team and all that, I couldn't see him doing it.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'm in the same boat you are, but it's just like, if I was Jamal, I'd be the same way. Like, listen, I'm coming off an all-pro year. I'm one of the best in my position. Yeah. I don't be paid that way, and and that's the NFL, man. Like, everybody's like, oh, he's got 2 more years or 3 more years. He's got no leverage. Listen, if we were in the same boat, we would do the same goddamn things. We want money. We want to get paid what we're worth, because the NFL career is not many guys play 15 years or 10, 12 years. You got to make as much money as fast as you possibly can. So I don't blame him, and I agree with you 1,000%. This is a phenomenal test for Joe Douglas, because this is going to get ugly in the media. Fans are going to pick sides. Jamal, the social media game very well. He'll cause a stir, and the locker room's going to watch, and players around the NFL are going to watch too, because hey, listen, this is their best player. He's gotten better every year. He's an all-pro guy, young, face of the franchise, vocal leader, emotional leader, and they're not going to give him his money. Like, it's going to be. Everybody's going to be watching, and this is Joe Douglas' big test, man. It's going to be interesting. I worry. My only worry is that Jets ownership gets involved and maybe overpowers Joe Douglas. That's my only concern, but it's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's Joe's opportunity, and to kind of change the Jet mentality. In terms of, fans, what we've seen, what the league has seen, of us just making dumb decisions and, not doing the things that we should by our players, or, just not, or signing people that people don't agree with. I think this is an opportunity for Joe to kind of, like you said, he wants to change the culture from the players to the home office, so I think this is a great opportunity to show how he's going to handle, like you said, the representation of the league. Everybody's watching. And I think, like I said, Jamal is somebody that he deserves to get paid what he is. And I agree with you. If anybody's in that situation, you strike while the iron's hot. Especially in the NFL, you have to. Your career, you're getting beat up every day. Your career isn't a long haul. It's like you said, especially as hard hitting as he is.
Yeah, no doubt. So we covered. You seem like you're encouraged by a lot of the moves. What would you say are your realistic expectations for this team this year? The AFC East is wide open. The Buffalo is the favorite based on New England. Who knows who the quarterback is? Miami's rebuilding, but they signed a lot of players and they got Tua. What do you think this team could be this year?
So I'm trying to limit my expectations for this season. I think Even Joe Douglas in himself, like I said, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think Joe Douglas is really focused on next season. I expect some trades throughout before the trade deadline, throughout the middle of the season. Considering, that the season isn't 100% different than every other season just because of limited time or what the aspect is, or I don't know none of us know what's going to happen yet, but considering that everything still goes according to schedule, for the trade deadline, I would expect to lose, someone like Marcus May. I would expect maybe some of these one-year deals to maybe be moved on from if we're not going to re-sign them. I think if we're really looking for next season, then we're going to try to stock up for the draft. We have the cap space. We'll have one of the highest cap spaces in the league the following year. So I think he's definitely, for my expectations for this year, everybody plays the record game. I could see my high is probably 8 wins. If anything 9, when I'm really, feeling the Jets and feeling really, really happy after I watch some Sam Darnold YouTube highlights or something, maybe 9 wins, but honestly, I really believe it's going to be a 7-win team, maybe a 6-win team, but definitely going to be some positive aspects in that. I just think the schedule is a lot harder, and we're playing some quality opponents, and having to go, play 2 West Coast games, and the one West Coast team one of the West Coast games that's coming over to us, it happens to be San Francisco, so that's not very, fortunate for us in that sense. So I think there's definitely winnable games in the schedule. I think like you said, the AFC East is wide open. If we can dominate the AFC East, which I think is something we can do because we just play Buffalo so well every time we do. We should have beat them twice last year, to be honest, not just that one last game. And New England's nothing. I don't expect a lot from New England this year either. So if we can dominate that AFC East, that's something, that gives us some hope and inspiration. But I just think we have a really rough schedule, and I think the from the top, I don't think they expect that much from this season. But maybe I'm wrong.
Do you think there's more pressure on Adam Gase or Sam Darnold this year?
I would say Adam Gase. I think because Sam Darnold's got another year under the rookie contract, you're obviously going to pick up the 5th-year option. I think that unless he has a bomb year, but if he has the same year to a certain extent, how he finished the season, I think we'll pick up, the 5th-year option is going to be picked up. And I think he'll have another year. I think people will have to almost pick sides, kind of like we talked about before in the Jamal Adams kind of Joe Douglas situation. Well, I think people would pick sides in terms of, is Adam Gase not developing Sam Darnold the right way, or is Sam Darnold not the quarterback that we thought he was going to be, and the quote unquote quarterback whisperer Adam Gase, has nothing in front, behind him or something like that. So I don't believe the latter. I definitely think Adam Gase, like I said, my hope is that Joe Douglas, even hoping for the next year, is that Adam, hoping for next year he's going to move on from Adam Gase after this year. But I think as a league in itself, I think he was on the hot seat this year. And he's definitely on the hot seat next year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think this is, I wish there was more pressure from all parties involved, the media, ownership, everything, to put more pressure on Adam Gase. And listen, we expect much better results this year, but their strong finish last year kind of squashes that, where it's like, they weren't that bad last year, when we kind of forget how awful they were for the first 8 games of the season. So it's gonna be interesting. I'm kind of in the same boat you're in. Yeah, there's some of the things that happened last year were so inexcusable, but then they finished the season strong. They beat like the second-string Bills team, and everybody's celebrating it, and it's like, wow, like it was kind of like a deodorant for all the other nonsense that happened, which really bothers me.
Yep.
And
like you said, the record, the record can be something, but as long as the team is, is showing well, doing well, being productive, getting first downs, their offense is actually well performing and moving, and we're not punting 9 times a game. And that's what the team kind of looked like. Even though there was wins that we would get, like you're talking about, a second string Buffalo team. There's probably 2 games last season that I felt like we looked like a dominant team. And if we got, other wins to finish the season, we got, the defense really saved us in most of them. But in terms of what Adam Gase is supposed to do in terms of his offense and his, his control of stuff like that, it looked terrible. It looked horrible. And then like you said, guys didn't show up for some games. It's just, to me, it was a situation where he that's what I said, going back to him on the hot seat. He is someone that needs to either show up, provide that he can create an offense that, having the guys that he has at his disposal can work.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be, to me, it's got to be like a top 20 offense. Like, you can't, I don't want to be another year where they go 6-10, the defense is keeping them in games, and the offense is horrendous, and Sam is struggling. That defeats the whole purpose. Like, the whole reason why Adam Gase was hired is for Sam. Like, that's, his number, if they go 5-11, but Sam Darnold has, 38 touchdown passes, and the offense is lighting it up, but they're losing close games, I'm fine with it. Because then there's, a glimmer of hope. But if Greg Williams in the defense is the strong point again, and this year, then it's what are we doing here? This is not why he was hired. And at some point, we got to see what we have in Sam. I think he's going to be a star, but at some point, we actually got to see it because he's due for a contract in a couple of years. We can't keep saying, okay, next year we'll give him this, and next year we'll do this. You can only have somebody next year. At some point, it's got to be this year. You know what I mean? You need to start getting answers from Gase, from this offense, and from Sam.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think if Gase can't provide it this year, I just think even more than Sam, he's just his creation of offense and getting Le'Veon plays in space. It's not, we say it's not complicated on our end. We're fans that have never really been involved in it, but it's just, or at least I am, but it's just one of those situations where people have done it in the past with the same players or worse or less talent, and it's just getting the right. That's what a head coach is supposed to design a scheme around to a certain extent, and work with that and put the guys where they need to be to make them successful. And that's why I don't think he does.
No, dude, I could not agree with you more. I mean, there was, we talked about it for weeks. It was you know what? The first 15 scripted plays, he looked like world beaters. Then when the scripted plays were gone, he had to make adjustments. They were dazed and confused. Then they go to half, they make some adjustments, and it was just the in-game adjustments, they take too long. He doesn't, one of his selling points he always was, listen, if I find a matchup I like, I'm going to keep doing it until they stop it. He never did that. I mean, you mentioned there was times when Le'Veon Bell as a receiver looked awesome. They take him out. Ty Montgomery do something, they grossly misused him. Le'Veon Bell was a disaster. But it was there's so many red flags that you worry about that you got to hope that this offseason he self-scouted and said, listen, this didn't work, I'm going to change it. I got to maximize Le'Veon Bell. He's a great running back. And then look at Sam and say, Sam, what plays work for you? Dude, we're only fans, but you could see he felt comfortable rolling out. And if you can put him in no back set when he's getting teed off on, put a guy, there were so many things that were just glaring for a casual fan that even when you watch the post-game show and Bart Scott and Ray Lucas are going nuts. They're dude, why aren't you doing this? And why aren't you doing that? It's and week in and week out, the same thing kept happening. You got to hope that he takes this offseason to address a lot of it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Adam Gase we've seen in his past is someone that believes he is incorrect in situations. I think he's someone that
he blames everybody else.
Yep. So I sadly to say, I don't see it in him, but hopefully it is a situation for us that it does, change, and he does realize, the things that he needs to do to make the team a little bit better, and it's not, I almost thought he was throwing a fit about Le'Veon Bell all season, in terms of just not giving him the plays that he needs on purpose, because he was angry that they signed him, or something like that. So that's not what we need.
No, he was he was a spiteful play caller. It was just the most. Yep. He's well, I'll give him his carries, but the carries where he was running into linebackers and safeties in the backfield. It didn't make any sense, and it was just. And the one thing that drove me crazy was you look at games where they should have ran the ball, like Cincinnati. He was pass happy. He's almost too arrogant for his own good. Where it's he's so stubborn. This play is going to work no matter what, and he's not willing to back off it. And that's sometimes people say Sean McVay is like that and other play callers are like that, but I don't think Adam Gase has proven that he knows how to do it effectively. I don't know. That's just kind of the way I feel about it.
And the 1 year he did do it, or not 1 year, but the years he has done it with, working with Peyton Manning, that was also someone on the field that literally ran his offense, ran his own offense, in terms of Peyton Manning ran his offense. Peyton Manning saw something, he changed something. He knew what would happen before it happened at that point. You can't expect every quarterback's going to be Peyton Manning, and the coach needs to realize that. And that's where he's really his flaws. are not designing something right for Sam. He's getting too cute with it too.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that was an excellent point you made earlier on, where you talked about, like, if you're like a head coach or an offensive coordinator, you're working with Peyton Manning, the level of communication there is a lot easier because Peyton Manning's been there, done that, and seen it all. So you can design plays and get creative and do all kinds of stuff because it's like, all right, he's him. But Sam Darnold is so new to the NFL where he's still trying to identify defenses and know where the hell the blitz is coming from and figure out where his receivers are running and all this. Like, there's 8,000 moving parts, not to mention a horrendous offensive line. It's like you gotta adjust on the fly, and you gotta recognize, okay, listen, none of this is working. Like, we could see it. Like, dude, go two-back set. Bring in a fullback if you have to. Do whatever you have to protect Sam. Like, stop letting him get hit. Stop putting him in positions to fail, where the kid's got to run for his life and make a remarkable throw just to get a first down. And that, like that are what's concerning.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, how many 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 11s did we see all last season? And then that's what it was over and over and over again. And football teams might have deficient talent or might have injuries, and it's that next man up mentality. But when the team sometimes goes out there and doesn't even look like they should be on the field with the other team, like, it's just not competitive. And some of the games we had, like that Patriots game, that Monday Night Patriots game, it just, it was hard to watch because it doesn't even look like the team to be on the same field, and I know the talent is there. Obviously, they're all NFL players, as bad as we can think one talent level is of one team, they're all NFL players, and no matter what, they all show up to play on Sunday because that's what they're getting paid to do. So, it's crazy that that he puts us through those situations. So I can't see it being more than another year if we have the same issues. So like you said, hopefully he does focus in on changing and realizing what he does. I know we read an article at the beginning of last season that, or the middle of last season, where he spoke to Le'Veon and, they were on the same page about his usage and the plays he liked to run and all this aspect. And then it was the same thing for the rest of the season. So then we heard the same thing at the end of the season. So we'll see. Hopefully that changes.
That stuff drives me crazy because it's like sometimes it's like he gives lip service to try to calm the fans down, the media down, but it's like the proof is in the pudding. And you look at, I tried I bash Gates a lot, and I try not to be super, super negative, but then it's like you compare other teams that had the same dire circumstances last year, whether it's Doug Peterson or Frank Reich or, Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, like all these teams, or the Carolina Panthers, they all dealt with backup quarterbacks. And they had to improvise and do all these things. And the offense, it obviously lost a beat, but it wasn't a complete train wreck. And it was like, how are we doing this? Like, why are we going backwards? Why are we, any kind of diversity in offense, and we mail it in? It's almost like there was times where he almost like quit. He was like, we're not going to do it. We just can't do it. Like, he gets like so frustrated where he can't figure it out. And he just kind of mails it in. And it drives you wild, man. Like, you just don't understand it.
Yeah, I mean, the Steelers almost made the playoffs last year with the third-string quarterback. And what happened? They redesigned their offense once Ben got hurt. It's those adjustments, not only in game but throughout the season, that need to change for us to be a better team in terms of the X's and the O's. Simple as that. But I definitely believe in Joe. Don't really believe in Adam, and definitely believe in Sam. So hopefully it's one of those situations that Joe can bring in his guy. Because like I said, Adam wasn't his hire, even though they say they have a good relationship. I still don't believe that aspect. Obviously Joe Douglas is not going to trash his head coach that he's currently, under him. But I don't see. I think Joe's smarter than that from what I've seen, and I want to believe in him. So that's at least my outlook on it for the future.
Yeah, I think Joe Douglas is praying to his heavenly stars that Adam Gase finds a way to win games this year. I think he doesn't want to deal with that circus because it's gonna be like another 1-6 starter, some 1-7 start. It's gonna be, this fan base is gonna go nuts. So, but we'll see. We got to stay positive. I mean, there's a lot can happen. It's not working out well for the Jets with all the lack of practice and stuff like that, with so much change where you could have 2 new wide receivers, 4 new offensive linemen. I said when we started this, there's such a premium on coaching right now. Like, they've got to be so organized and so diligent to get everybody on the same page as fast as possible. Because if they don't, you look at the schedule and you don't want to look at the whole schedule, but it's like you're starting out with Buffalo and San Francisco. If your offense doesn't have its act together, dude, it could be ass kickings. And the last thing you want is Sam running for his life again. So This is a good test for Gase. And it's a good test for, at some point, if this team is struggling or they don't look organized, for Joe Douglas to step in, even though they're on the same level. But listen, man, this isn't working. You got to change things now. We're not waiting. We're not giving you 8 weeks to mail this and then figure out how to make a change. Like, you got to make changes sooner. Like last year, like one of the biggest things with Ryan Khalil, they kept him in there, and God knows why, where he was horrendous. At some point, there's got to be a power structure saying, listen, and this is what the concern with Joe Douglas and Adam Gase being on the same level reporting to the owner is somebody's got to tell him, listen, this guy's got to come out. Like, we're watching it week in and week out. He's got to go. It's just like things like that. It'll be interesting to see if that dynamic changes this year with Joe Douglas got a full year under his belt with his role there, and he can have that conversation with Gase.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if the players aren't performing, and we saw that all last season, and they would stay in and just stay in and stay in.
We ripped Bowles for that. How long did we bash Bowles for that endlessly? And Gase did the same thing.
Yeah, and I think Bowles was just another example of the Jets just not adjusting. Bowles frustrated me the same way with Gase in terms of he never adjusted. And it was just not the system over and over and over and over again. But that's a whole nother. Bowles' years is a whole nother one.
Well, Michael, first of all, I want to thank you for joining me, man. I had a blast. This is a fun conversation. If Jet fans want to follow you or talk some football with you, what's the best way to hit you up on social media?
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Wilkers. It's WILKERZ. I'm always down to talk Jets. Like I said, I'm a diehard, long life Jets fan. I lived in New York for a long time. I lived in Brooklyn for about 4.5 years, and then in upstate for another 4 years. So I love New York. Definitely has a piece of my heart for sure. And no, it was great, man. Thanks for having me. This is a great opportunity. Honestly, I've never really done a lot of call-ins or anything like that, but the opportunity to just talk Jets is something you can't let go here, especially down here in Texas where you don't get the opportunity too often.
No, man, I definitely appreciate it. I had a blast, and we'll do it again soon, man.
Sounds great. Take care.
Good. You too. Take care. All right. That was Michael Wilkerson talking some Jets. Interesting takes on Gase and the team and his thoughts on a new season. And if you want to come on and talk some football, just all you do is message us at Talk Jets Radio, Instagram and Twitter. I'm Tyson Roush, TRoush21. Very simple, very easy to do. Takes about 35 minutes of your time, and that's it. So we'll talk to you next time.